Welcome into overtime. Hope you are doing well. Good evening to you, Corey Miller. Joined with Jim Baxter of scvarsity.com. And Jim, I cannot believe that it's already the final show for A-State Championships this weekend. And it seems like we just had jamborees.
It does. It seems like we were just talking about preseason rankings and everything, and here we are getting ready to crown the champions for 3A and 4A. And, of course, we crowned champions this past weekend for 1A and 2A. So there's still a lot of football to be played, but it's going to be over this weekend.
It's going to be over this weekend. And, of course, we'll get into the All-Star games, the North-South, and, of course, the Shrine Bowl. So we'll do that later on, let you know what we got in store for that. But right now it's all about last week. Of course, my top five, your top five. Some teams had some challenges. Most of them had some challenges for me, except Dutch Fork. They go on to win their game. A rematch of Burns and Dutch Fork. Of course, Dutch Fork last year went to the upstate and took care of business, Jim. And they took care of business at home again and can eventually manner.
Yeah, they did, and no surprise this week. We talked about this game last week, and I didn't think that that Burns would be able to stop that Dutch Fork offense in the ground game. And you see Matt Colburn running the football there, and that was all night long. I mean, Burns struggled with that all night. They caught Dutch Fork off guard one time in a zero coverage situation and hit a big pass, but they really had no answer for Dutch Fork.
Now, we always talk about, and I remember you saying that Burns had a better offense than they did last year. We thought they would score more points. And we always talk about Dutch Fork and Matt Colburn and Tate Fan and the offense, the bore. But really, I think when you look at Dutch Fork team this year, it's really been about their defense. And I think they've been much better. And maybe the best defense Tom Mouse has had over there.
It looks like it. And in terms of Burns, us talking about them being a better offense than they were last year, I'm not sure they were better offense than they were last year. I think they were more balanced than they were last year. They run the ball more than they did last year, and they mix it up, so they're a little bit more balanced. But obviously, they didn't have anything for Dutch Fork's defense Friday night because Dutch Fork shut them down.
41-6, and Tom Mouse talked about and told us last week, a lot of teams get, that scary feeling when Burns rolls in, but they weren't going to be backing down, and they didn't. They go on to win that ball game 41-6. Now, we talked a lot about Keenan and Coach McCullum and what he has done, the job he has done. I think it's been phenomenal that he got his team to a state title game, although they didn't win it, but kudos to them, right?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, getting there, I don't think that there was anybody in the state outside of maybe his coaching staff that would have given them any chance at being in a state title game. And of course, they had a great season. They had a tough region, so they were prepared for the playoffs. They had a really good run in the playoffs. Played their best football, I think, when they hit the playoffs. And then they run into Timberland, who's just a powerhouse program. And, Timberland with Art Craig down there as a head coach, they were strong as a 3A team. They dropped down to 2A. They're just as strong, and a lot of talent in that Timberland area. And they've got a great strength program, too. But Keenan is on the rise, and Coach McCullum's done a good job over there.
Yeah, so kudos to Keenan, even though they lost the game. Of course, first time they made the Final Four, so to speak. We talk about the basketball program over there, but he has done an amazing job getting them to the state title game. And now they kind of know what it feels like. You kind of be like, that's the appetizer. We know, and so those kids that are coming back for Keenan, they're going to be hungry. They're going to be ready to go and get back to work.
Yeah, exactly. You tell the kids after the game, when you see all the kids hanging with their heads down crying, you tell those kids, don't forget this feeling.
Right.
Don't forget this feeling, so when you come back next year into this season, you know what you're working for.
No doubt about it. And don't forget this feeling. What about them Bulldogs of Newberry? Them Bulldogs, Coach Phil Strickland, and of course facing a team that's a 2A powerhouse. And I talked to a coach this past week, Jim, who's a college coach. He's from Dillon. And you know what I'm talking about? Coach Kevin Steele.
Yeah, Kevin
he asked
Steele.
me about them Dillon guys. He said, man, them guys are tough. He said, you ought to see the facilities down there. And they've just been balling their third straight title in a row. And I talked about the matches with Paisley back in the day. This team, should they be 3A even?
Well, they do get some kids from one of the alternative schools down there. So they're basically, from my understanding through coaches, is that they're basically drawing from what would be a 3A population, but they're not having to count some of those kids in their enrollment numbers. So, it may be that they're playing a little bit above their grade, but or below where they should be, rather. But you know, they're a tough team. I mean, Jackie Hayes has done a great job. They got some good athletes. Avery McCall, that quarterback that you saw just a minute ago, one of the top prospects for the 2016 class. And they're loaded every year. It seems like they just reload and come back, and regardless of who they're facing, they run over them.
I mean, you talk about these guys when you look at the recruiting, and this is your thing here, Jim, and we see a lot of guys like Joe Blue last year and other guys that, you know, they had a receiver that come to Carolina, you know, a few years back. I mean, this team for a 2A school, I mean, I'm just saying, it almost seems, look at that look. I mean, the guys are upset, and I understand from Newberry, but this Dillon team, I mean, they are, I want to call them a franchise of a high school for us, Division 2A. Seriously? I mean, it's not even close.
Well, and you know, one of the problems with 2A, one of the problems with 1A and 2A that I have is the divisions. I don't think you should have divisions. I don't think we should have divisions in 4A either. I think we need a 5-class system, but that's a whole other show. But they're going to continue to dominate as long as they're in the 2A, right. Because of the draw that they have, or where they're getting their kids from, and based on their enrollment numbers that they actually report legally. And so it's kind of a mismatch whenever they come up against these other 2A teams.
Well, a good program, of course, won a lot of games, and they're going to probably continue to do that. Now, you talk about that, is it a feeder system, this school you talking about?
No, it's not a feeder system. They've got an alternative school in that area, and they actually draw kids from that school, is my understanding. But those schools that school doesn't count against their enrollment numbers. So regardless of how many kids they get from that school into their program, into their football program, they're not counted in the enrollment numbers from Dillon High School. So.
Okay. Well, they're doing well. Whatever they're doing out there, Coach Steele told me, say, how Dillon do? I said, well, they won convincingly. And so he said, yeah, that's a good program down there in Dillon. All right, when we come back, Burns, they're gone. Dutch Fork moves on. They're going to play Hillcrest. I don't know much about Hillcrest. I remember Hillcrest, Dalzell. You remember that school? But this is up in Simpsonville. This is going to be the state championship game. We'll talk about that and break that down for you. Our Watch Rock game of the week. We'll be back. All right, welcome back to Overtime. And, of course, our final game to watch, and this team has been in a lot of games to watch because they're the best in the Midlands. That's Dutch Fork. Tom Knotts, again, his third straight appearance into a state title game. They won it last year. Of course, that game is against Hillcrest Saturday on December the 6th at 6 o'clock at Williams-Brice Stadium. I don't know a whole lot, Jim, about Hillcrest, but I know a lot about Dutch Fork and the job Tom Knotts has done over there. We know it's that college-type offense. We know that they can run the ball with Colbert. Tate Fan has done a really nice job at quarterback in this football team. They have big play potential on the outside. And as I stated earlier, they're a team that's been playing some really good defense. That's the game against Westwood. Just took the football and scored a touchdown. It was a big turning point in that ball game. But I think it's been about the defense more so than the offense, in my opinion.
It has been. And, you know, they're going to face a team in Hillcrest that is probably going to be maybe the most athletic, outside of the team they played in Texas, outside of Allen, maybe the most athletic team and the team with the most team speed that they've seen all year. Very athletic team, very explosive on the offensive side of the ball. But I don't think Hillcrest matches up well with Dutch Fork. I think that the things that I've seen with Hillcrest on film, they got a great quarterback. Colin Sneed does a great job managing the game, and he's a good passer. But what Hillcrest doesn't do is they don't tackle well in space. So if you get your players out in space and you hit your running back and Matt Colburn out there in space, it's going to be a long night for them. The other thing is as explosive as they are on the offensive side of the football, they don't do well under pressure. We know Dutch Fork's defensive front can put pressure on Hillcrest, and that could be the difference in this game with Dutch Fork putting pressure on that offense and that offense sputtering. If they don't put pressure on them, this is an offense that can put up a lot of points.
Yeah, well, I think this defense has been playing really, really well, only giving up some change, that is, to Burns' team that we talked about, a high potent offense that could score some points. But I think it's going to be a really good game, a state championship game. Anybody could win, especially at Williams-Brice Stadium. Well, Tom Knotts, we caught up with him this week. Here's what he had to say about the upcoming game.
You know, I guess the first couple of days I kind of fell prey to the internet and the people chattering that Hillcrest hadn't played anybody and they're not that good. So, I thought, okay, well, this will be, after playing Burns and Dorman, this will be a little bit easier. I was totally off base. Hillcrest can beat Burns, and Hillcrest would beat Dorman. So we're going to come back out here and go back to work today as hard as we can, and we're going to realize I've just got out of a meeting with them. I think now they realize what a quality team Hillcrest is, and we won't overlook anybody.
Well, almost like he's overlooking Hillcrest. I mean,
he started off
right.
overlooking them because based on what's
right.
on the internet. And I've seen the same comment. And quite honestly, until the playoffs came around, Hillcrest really had not beaten anyone. I mean, they lost to Westside early in the year. They did beat Greenwood, but Greenwood's down this year, and so. But they played the games that were on their schedule,
right.
and so. But they beat everyone handily. They score a lot of points. This is a team that could put 60 points up on them. And but I don't think they'll do that against Dutch Fork. I think Dutch Fork's defense is going to be. I think Dutch Fork's defensive line is the key to this football game.
No doubt about it. Defense wins championships, and we talk about it and sometimes use that very loosely. But at the end of the day, when you get into football games like this, teams that have potent offenses that can move the ball, that can score points, you better be able to stop some folks. Another thing that's going to help Dutch Fork in this ball game is the fact that Matt Colburn and that offensive line, I think they can run the ball, they control the clock, limit the possessions of an offense like at a Hillcrest. And again, it's right here in Columbia. I don't want to call it a home field advantage for Dutch Fork, well, but it is 15 minutes away. I think they'll have more fans than Hillcrest, in my opinion. But I look for Dutch Fork to win this ball game, even though Coach Knott's a little, he's confident. I mean, he's got swag now. Yeah. You can tell he's got swag.
They'll be very well prepared, and I think Dutch Fork will be a better coach team.
I think Dutch Fork wins this ball game by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I really do. I think they're going to celebrate again out in Irma. All right, when we come back, it's time for us to release our players of the year offensively and defensively, and we're going to give you the team of the year. Maybe we're going to break it down for you. Don't want to miss that. Your name could be on the list. We'll be back. And we're back. It's time now to kind of release our offensive and defensive players of the year, plus the offensive and defensive teams of the year. Of course, a lot of good players here in the Millers, and we want to celebrate you because all of you guys really have done a great job. It's been a pleasure just really watching you guys play this year, but we only could choose a few. So Jim and I had to sit down, and Vinny, our producer, we sat down and went through, Jim, and came up with some names. Let's just start.
We had a good list.
Yeah, we had a great list. I mean, we could have went second, third, and fourth like the ACC, SEC, but of course we want to keep it to one team. Let's start with the offensive team of the year. Jim, roll it.
Quarterback Brendan Green, AC Florida, did a great job leading AC Florida to semifinals of 3A playoffs. Running back Zacchaeus Leapart Gilbert, don't have to say much about this. This kid, 1,900 yards. I think he had 28 touchdowns on the year. Outstanding player. I think still the best running back in the Midlands area and probably the best senior running back in the state.
Now, he's going with you down to the All-Star game.
Yes, he's going to the All-American game. Okay. Running back Matt Colburn, Dutch Fork. Hey, who doesn't know him? Yeah, he's headed to Louisville. Great running back. Offensive lineman. This was tough because we had a lot of good offensive linemen in the Midlands area. Alex Wilkes at Brooklyn Casey High School, Dennis Daly from Ridgeview High School, Justice Worley from Keenan High School, Colt Beedenbow from Pillion High School, and Whit Warner, the center from River Bluff High School. Tight end is a Will Register, sophomore,
nice.
Chapin High School. Wide receiver Denzel Johnson of AC Flora and wide receiver Alec DeBoer of Dutch Fork. You see a lot of Dutch Fork, a lot of AC Flora on there, and they had a lot of success this year.
Well, because those teams were pretty good. So congratulations to all of you. Of course, again, if you were left off that list and your young guys, over time we're going to be rolling right on. So keep that all-season training and spring practice. And make sure next year that'd be a goal of yours, to be on the All-Midlands team for the overtime in the office. Let's go to defense. The guys that are dear to my heart, of course, Terrell Goodwin of AC Flora. He's a really good active defensive line guy that gets in the backfield. I saw him play a lot of games. Riley Moon of Lexington. Jim, you spoke highly of this kid. And some of these guys I know very well, like Jalen Williams. He's a guy that I think is going to do well at the next level. And, Jim, this is your guy right here of Hammond. You really like this guy.
I like this kid, DeAndre Lee Smith. I think he's a Division I talent.
No doubt about it. Hassan Belton, we talked about him early on in the year, all year. He's going to be another guy, I think, play some good, solid football. Jordan Williams, brothers up there. How about the brothers making the All-Midlands team of Spring Valley? He's a kid that got some offers out there as well. I think he's going to develop into a really nice football player. I really like this guy, Trey Mitchell. I mean, he was our defensive player of the year early in the season. Very active. Kind of, I thought was a heartbeat of Lexington's defense. I like him, Jim, as a player. What about the secondary?
Secondary, Dominic Lemon from Blythewood, I think one of the better cornerbacks in terms of coverage skills in the state. DeMarcus Musgrove is a highly underrated kid, and you know him. You've seen him play. This kid can cover anybody. He's good in man coverage. He plays in whatever defense you line up. He's going to do it, and he's going to do a good job. Tyler Frazier, Spring Valley, safety, more of a strong safety, maybe even a linebacker, Corey. He's a very physical football player. And then Dominic Byers, Brooklyn Casey, had a lot of picks this year. This is this kid's first year of football.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Now, you see a lot of Spring Valley names up there. Was disappointing that their season was disappointing. but they had defense.
They lived off their defense. Yeah, the defense was the highlight of that football team.
Yeah, the offense just could not get it going. Let's feature our offensive and defensive players of the year. And this was tough, but I don't think one of them was tough for me, and I know not for you, Jim. Offensive player of the year, what's his name, Jim?
Zacchaeus Leapart, running back from Gilbert High School.
Your guy.
1,985 yards, 28 touchdowns, and I'm telling you, the kid's a real D. 6'1", 215, 220. He is a real throwback-style tailback.
Now, we talked about him and going forward. I mean, if this is maybe a junior college guy, can he prep school? What can we do to see this guy at the next level?
I think he's going to be really, really close. It's probably going to be more of a junior college kid. He's a kid that, somebody, and I know that I've talked to some coaches. I think that he's being looked at by Auburn, as a matter of fact. But he's going to be a kid that somebody's going to have to place in a JUCO. He could go the prep school route. I think JUCO may be better for him. And this is the type of kid, Corey, could go to JUCO and be a JUCO All-American and then have his pick of schools coming out of junior college.
Just a good-looking player, looked the part. And, of course, hopefully he get everything together and had a chance to play at the next level. So congratulations to Zacchaeus Leapart. Our defensive player of the year, of course, I like this guy. Seen him for a few years, been in the Northeast. Hassan Belton of Blythewood is our defensive player of the year. Hassan is a good player, Jim. Of course, you highlighted him in your recruiting. Yeah. And just talk about him for a little bit.
Well, he's another kid that I think is obviously is a Division I talent. He's still waiting on that 1A offer, that the FBS offer. He's got plenty of FCS schools after him. He's got offers on the table from those guys. But the problem with him, as good as a high school player is, as good of a player as he is, he's just at 6 foot tall. And that's a challenge in recruiting at the Division 1A level. Is at that linebacker spot, they like for you to be a little bit bigger, and the 6 foot guys are in that they're kind of what we call tweeners. They're just not quite there. He's probably not quite big enough to play at the linebacker spot in those type of schools, but not quite fast enough to play outside as a corner or even as a safety. So he's in that tweener spot. But I think he's got Division I offers on the table from the FCS level schools.
All right, good stuff. So congratulations to all those guys. Of course, I'm glad that we can feature you for being players of the year. When we come back, well, what the weather will be like at Williams-Brice Stadium, Dutch Fork and Hillcrest. Our chief meteorologist, Henry Rothenberg, will give you the forecast after the break. All right, welcome back to Overtime Final Segment. And yes, since we are in that Christmas spirit, I thought I'd wear my Santa Claus hat. So Dutch Fork, Hillcrest, Williams-Brice Stadium, 6 o'clock. Welcome back, our chief meteorologist, Pretty Boy, Henry Rothenberg, for his final Overtime forecast of the year. What can the folks expect at the Brice?
I think the folks at home first should know that apparently your head and ego are so big you need the plastic adjusty thing on that Santa hat.
That's right.
I've never seen that before. We'll have to get a close-up of that before we end. Nothing but love, Corey, but really it's mainly all the respect towards Jim Baxter. Hey, let's talk about the football game as we head into the final game of the season, the final overtime, we're going into what we call the wedge pattern, and it's a phrase that you're going to hear a lot in weather heading into the colder months. It's basically when you get the cloudy sky, the chance of some showers, and temperatures don't move a whole lot. That is what's known as cold air damming or the wedge, and that's going to be in place. It's been in place today, tomorrow, and still in place on Saturday, which makes place for some gray and cool football weather this weekend. Can't rule out a few showers as well, so let's get right to it on Future Watch. And notice as we roll through the day on Saturday, we do have, as we take a look across the southeast, a cloudy sky overhead. Now, we will likely, going later in the day, not going to rule out a little bit of drizzle, but by 6 o'clock, when that game is kicking off, well, I'm not going to, again, rule out some drizzle, but I think the main story will be that gray, cloudy sky that we have overhead. It's kind of giving you that damp feel in the air, so it may be a little chilly. Looks like we could see some showers starting to fire up along the 95 corridor to our east, so we're not looking at any heavy downpours over at Williams-Brice, just the chance of some light showers or drizzle off and on. The main story will be the cool conditions. Here's a look at that high school forecast. Hillcrest, Dutch Fork, and it's Hillcrest from Simpsonville, 57 degrees at kick. That's actually the temperature we're going to maintain for much of the day. Winds are going to be light throughout much of the game. Can't rule out a few showers as well, but all in all, it looks to be relatively cool, but it could be worse, Corey, as we head into that final game of the season. You may need to adjust that little plastic strap there, man. It looks like that hat's kind of tight, squeezing a lot in there.
Really? There's so much brain up here, Henry.
Large
Appreciate
cranium.
it.
No, it's not that.
Well, it should be 57 degrees. It's really a really good afternoon for some football. Again, we're both thinking Dutch Fork's going to win this ball game. Right?
I think so, regardless of whether it's raining or not.
All right, here we go. Our final top 5 of the year. Here is Jim's top 5 in the middle.
Dutch Fork, no change there. AC Flora number 2, Westwood number 3, Keenan, Newberry number 4 and Keenan number 5. Both of them playing for state championships this year.
Surprised you don't have Hammond in there. Here's my top 5, Dutch Fork. Congratulations, win or lose, you will be number 1. Westwood still, to me, the second best team in the middle. Hammond at number 3. They jump AC4, who ends up at number 4. And, of course, Keenan is at number 5. So there you go. That's our final top 5 of the year. Now, even though it's our final football overtime, Jim and I will be back doing stuff periodically. Shrine Bowl, a North-South game, recruiting. So Jim will be a part of this show. Thank you all for having us. Basketball in 2 weeks with the Captain Kerry Rich. That's going to be the overtime and Chalk Talk. You don't want to miss it. Have a great night and happy holidays, everybody.